Protect your guns at the Safe and Vault store. That's the safeandvaultstore.com. Click the link below right now. Enter promo code AMTV at checkout and save 10% off store-wide on all of their products. Check out their popular gun and burglar safes. Again, enter promo code AMTV, save 10% off store-wide, plus free shipping and guaranteed holiday delivery if you place your order before November 10th. 10% off with promo code AMTV. Visit the safeandvaultstore.com today. Click the link below right now. Hey everybody, I'm Christopher Green, and you're tuning into AMTV, Alternative Media Television. It is Tuesday, October 27, 2015. Today's video, you'll learn how the wartime propaganda is hitting an all-time high, which actually makes me nervous, should make you nervous, because again, it must mean we are at war. You notice there was a report, I think it was from the New York Times, correct me if I'm wrong, it came out over the weekend, that said that Russia is meddling with undersea cables that could potentially bring down the entire grid. Not that that couldn't happen, it very well could. But there's a reason the New York Times is reporting on it. There's a reason the mainstream media is reporting on it. There's a reason that Russia is being demonized. There is a reason why Putin has been framed as the next Hitler, the boogeyman, worse than ISIS, worse than chopping people's heads off in the Middle East, worse than Al-Qaeda. I was speaking with a friend yesterday and I said, I've got a question for you, my friend. What if ISIS didn't even exist? I mean, it came out of nowhere just over a year ago. Nobody had ever heard of it. ISIS didn't exist. ISIL didn't exist. The Islamic State didn't exist. There weren't these new radicals on the ground in the Levant of Iraq and Syria, so why is it they exist now? Maybe it just serves a very specific agenda and convenient narrative that the West needs in this part of the world. You know, kind of like the moon landing. You know, I haven't done a lot of investigation on the moon landing. It hasn't really been a point of interest for me. Some of you probably have. My friend also asked me, he says, Chris, do you think that the moon landing is a conspiracy? I said, I don't know. I do know, however, that there was self-interest to be the first country to allegedly land on the moon during the Cold War, a time where we were at war with Russia, and children were being fear-mongered under their desk that at any moment, some of you probably remember this, many of you baby boomers, at any moment, a nuclear bomb could go off in an American city.
That's why these children are practicing to duck and cover just as you do in your school. We all know the atomic bomb is very dangerous. Since it may be used against us, we must get ready for it, just as we are ready for many other dangers that are around us all the time. Now, we must be ready for a new danger, the atomic bomb.
Bring down the entire grid, kill potentially millions of people as a result of a very deadly and radioactive fallout. So we're seeing this same type of rhetoric now, with Russia supposedly meddling with these undersea cables. You see, it always feeds a very convenient bullshit mainstream media narrative that serves the agenda of the corporations that own Washington, D.C. So it's clear that we're at war. I mean, the same way, and just how they frame Putin having, this is the allegation, it's of course not true, it's an untruth. The allegation that Putin invaded Crimea and then forced all the people to join the Russian Federation, even though they actually voted with some 90+% vote to join Russia. Putin never invaded Ukraine. It was actually the opposite. The United States, through their meddling, revolutions and re-revolutions as they fund the terrorists and insurgents on the ground, whether or not it's places like Ukraine or Syria. But that's not what you get from the mainstream media here in the States. It's not what you get from CNN, Fox News, or MSNBC. They'll talk about stories which are also in the news. Again, this wartime propaganda at an all-time high regarding the Spratly Islands, another enemy of the United States right now, China, building up and dredging in the South China Sea, militarizing this part of the world. And the United States actually running its warships right now within the danger zone. The Chinese are going like, leave US, this isn't your territorial waters, please go. CNN flying their spy planes, and the US contesting what China is now dredging and militarizing, creating these military bases and landing strips so planes and fighter jets can land and take off. Isn't it interesting how the United States will say, well, China just claims ownership of those islands. It's contested by the international community, as if, we always give the United States the benefit of the doubt. But if China contests our waters, for example, or Russia does, like in the Arctic, and I reported on this not too long ago, there's war games going on in the Arctic. It's the real reason that Obama was in Alaska. It wasn't for climate change. It wasn't to visit Sarah Palin. There is a war going on right now. That is also, in that part of the world, is also being militarized. But if China or Russia or the BRICS nations do the same thing that the United States does, well, then it's a serious threat. China and Russia were really out of line. Vladimir Putin was really out of line. So we see this new war rhetoric, this new mainstream media propaganda being pitched. I don't think we've seen it escalated to this level since the last Cold War, which should make Americans nervous, should make the international community nervous, because it must mean that we're at war. Even Obama, who's an egotistical, psychopathic, maniac asshole, was on camera yesterday, I think it was. There's some mainstream news on this, where he's considering putting more troops on the ground in Iraq. Now, of course, Obama was lying to us in 2008 when he said he would withdraw troops, but just the sheer fact that he's an egomaniacal asshole probably makes him a little uncomfortable, because remember, he was supposed to withdraw the troops. I've had a lot of you liberals, try to call me out, quote unquote, over the years saying, well, Obama actually withdrew troops. Christopher, actually, no. No, he's launched new wars, anti-constitutionally in Syria. He's been drone striking civilians since, last year, 2000, I think September, sometime in that ballpark, something that we had covered extensively leading up to that event. Over 500,000 people dead in Syria. Now he's considering more troops in Iraq, the same country that he supposedly had withdrawn from. He's calling it special operations, his advisors. We're going to send special forces, but it's still boots on the ground. It's still troops. And the reason for all this is because of this propaganda war, the very nature of it. Russia and China now intervening in this part of the world. Vladimir Putin running his own airstrikes, something John McCain clearly got wrong or was lying to us when we interviewed him several years ago, and he guaranteed that Russia wouldn't act. So in response to Russia now actually getting involved as a result of illegal U.S. intervention and meddling, the United States is now sending more troops. Obama's contemplating special forces on the ground. So it's a total shit show. I mean, just like ISIS was created out of thin air as a figment of the imagination of the CIA. You see, ISIS is really just Al-Qaeda, but that's been kind of run into the ground, because remember, Obama supposedly cut the head off the dragon in the name of Osama bin Laden, even though Osama bin Laden has died, according to the official mainstream media narrative, like 5 times. The Durka terrorist that was just, living, in Pakistan or something, allegedly playing Xbox video games and being blown by Pakistani hookers, and the U.S. couldn't find him for all those years. He was like, wanted dead or alive, the entire international community, the complete power and totality of intelligence around the world couldn't find him. He was just hanging out at a multi-million-dollar property. Like, we're expected to believe that. The list goes on and on. I've talked about this extensively. How his dead body was allegedly kicked off a U.S. warship without any DNA evidence, not even a tweet pic to prove that we had captured the guy. How SEAL Team 6 goes down, 19 or more of SEAL Team 6 that allegedly took out Osama bin Laden just winds up dead conveniently. An Afghani terrorist shoots down the helicopter. We know that, of course, was a staged event, so nobody can talk. Again, dead men don't speak. So the very nature of this propaganda war has hit a new high. It's hit a new level that we haven't seen in years. This militarization that's currently taking place in the South China Sea, in the Spratly Islands, Russia, this propaganda war with Russia, Vladimir Putin now taking his own actions in the Levant, in the greater part of Iraq and Syria. The Middle East far worse off than it was before. This figment of the CIA's imagination, which has now just created ISIS because it's an excuse. It creates and allows the agenda that is the intent and has been the U.S.'s intent in this part of the world all along. You see, when Al-Qaeda was finished because it's run its course and they could no longer use it, they simply created ISIS. You know, our politicians constantly play dumb, like they don't know what's going on. It's a really good tactic, actually, to use psychologically through the mainstream media as their mouthpiece. You know, like they play dumb, like they didn't know any of this was going to happen. I mean, George W. Bush didn't know September 11th was going to happen, even though it's now declassified. We had intelligence that we knew ahead of time it was likely, whether or not it was an inside job or not, that an event like September 11th could happen at the World Trade Center, the Twin Towers. Of course he didn't know. Just like he didn't know, he was flabbergasted when he was reading the Pet Goat book, Upside Down, which was also staged with cameras rolling for a reason. I mean, what a good guy, George W. Bush, with the cameras rolling. You're just reading a book upside down to children during one of the greatest tragedies in American history. I'm glad Donald Trump pointed that out. We weren't safe under the rule of George W. Bush. We had one of the worst events and terrorist acts transpire under his leadership. And Jeb, the piece of driftwood that he is, says that America was safe. Honestly, the Bushes are a freaking joke, just like the Clintons are a joke. And you know, Trump's got his own problems. Yeah, he's an egotistical maniac himself. Yeah, he's larger than life. Yeah, he's Hollywood and reality TV. But you know, at least he's a little bit different. At least he's not the political establishment. He's the corporate establishment, but he's not the political establishment. And with all of this wartime rhetoric hitting a new high, again, we need to ask as Americans, who's the better president? Who has the intellect? Who has the composure? Who's aggressive enough to hold our ground during and throughout the next great war? I'm Christopher Green. Get this video out everywhere. Make it viral, hard hitting it in your face, and click the link below to support our sponsor.